All right. And yeah, this one will be, I love the title of this one. It's from Space Tomato. We are not playing Star Citizen. So I agree, but I wonder what angle he's taking at this, and I'm pretty interested in it. We are not playing Star Citizen.
Star Citizen is far from complete. Many of the reasons for piracy, resource collection, bounty hunting, and even just traveling don't exist yet. The same is true for the first
We're getting
Star
played
system,
by it,
Stanton.
yeah.
As a system being built from the ground up, it must undergo a pattern of expansion to introduce new spaces and updates to introduce new features to use those spaces. Without the spaces, features aren't tested. Without the features, spaces are useless. This has been a tug-of-war over the years that will continue on in this system and the game as a whole.
Yep.
In this video, I'm going to show you what makes the first star system.
It's very frustrating to see them not build out any of the systems. And I know there's going to be some arguments against this, but I continuously will say and believe, and the game is showing the proof of this, is that all this time and effort spent on art, and especially art assets that players can't interact with or can't do anything with, is causing a lot of issues once the game design starts coming in. I think you could, Reclaimer, Vulture, Prospector, Mole, and more, Carrick, things when like the cargo refactor came in. A lot of these things, the design of the ships don't make sense anymore now that the systems are coming in. And that means that future ships are going to make a lot more sense than old ships. And then these old legacy ships that you spend hundreds of dollars on end up collecting dust, or you end up melting them, and there was never a point in buying them in the first place or whatever, right? And this goes for space stations, this goes for outposts, this goes for everything. Everything is going to have to get redone completely once all the systems come in. And that's why it makes a lot more sense to have the systems dialed in and then do the level design. But
Star Citizen, how it continues to change, and how the future of this star system and the game as a whole will play radically different from what we play in Alpha 3.17.
Damn, dude, that
this
station
video was made
is
in
massive. Did you? I never noticed that there was a javelin there. That is huge.
This video was made in January 2023 as an exclusive for my supporters. If you would like to join them in accessing a new exclusive video every month, chat rooms, and live podcasts, check out the link in the video description and pinned comment. And if you already are, well, thank you for supporting my Tomato Talks.
Would a simple temporary loading screen in other galaxies be beneficial? No, I don't think so. Because no matter what, we still need server meshing inside the systems that we're in, right?
The Stanton system is unique in many different ways we'll go over in this video, but it was chosen as the first system in the game for one key reason. It contains just enough of everything to set some good standards for systems going forward, from the planets to the size to the location compared to other systems to the architectural styles of each planet.
And they've done a really good job at that, I think. The design, right? So they say, all right, well, this is what high tech looks like. This is what low tech looks like. This is what a gas giant would play out like, right? So from the way things look, there's no denying that Star Citizen does some of the best things we've ever seen, right? But again, all of those things are working against making an actual video game, right? Playing Star Village really made me appreciate CIG more. It has for some aspects for me, and for others it hasn't, because it was very clearly thought out with gameplay in mind. All the locations, all the places that I went, right? Where currently Star Citizen just wants to make something that looks cool. And that's it. It is an art project. It is not a game project. As of right now, 2023 was the first time that it felt like they were inserting gameplay into Stanton with salvage missions and cargo refactor and so on. It feels like it's starting to happen, But it's happening very slowly, obviously.
But anyways, Stanton is a sort of safe system with a lot of corporate and trade opportunities, piracy and gang activity, a huge population in general, and a massive supply of work, though not for the most lucrative pay. It's meant for early players to the game, but definitely still the type of player who can defend themselves. This isn't all entirely true to the system just yet, but it's where it's headed. A star system in Star Citizen is meant to be a pretty complex thing on its own, and as more of them are created and connected, they will all affect each other. The Stanton system will change, for better or worse depending on who you are, and in this video I'm going to show you the signs and hints as to how that change has already started and how it will continue in the future.
So this is interesting because he originally posted this in January, so there were intentions for this year that have not been done.
As I hinted at before, Stanton is not a normal system, even by this video game's standards. You've got 4 planets all sitting in the system's habitable zone, and while there were some minor issues with the terraforming process, looking at you Microtech, they all are oxygen-rich atmospheres that allow you to traverse in plain clothes in different biomes and environments. The other 3 planets besides Microtech the ice planet are Arcorp, the city planet, Hurston the semi-wasteland of a planet, and Crusader, the gas giant. All are moderated and controlled by their own corporate entities which go by the same name as their planets. They weren't super creative. These jurisdictions are not just for show, either. Throughout the game, you'll encounter different factions that perceive you in different ways based on your friends, foes, and the activities you partake in.
I hope one day we start seeing different rules and laws in around each planet. That would be kind of cool.
This is very limited at the moment, but it's growing in significance every year. In Stanton, you'll be able to decide which companies and individuals you team up with to make money. While this is true in each system, Stanton is the only system that is primarily controlled by corporations, so you can imagine how out of hand this style of loyalty could get. Now, surrounding all these planets are 12 moons that also belong to their respective companies, though you will find plenty of smaller companies with facilities and operations on these moons. In addition to the planetary bodies in the system, you will also find asteroid and debris fields, dozens of space stations, a prison, a massive asteroid belt around the whole system, and several areas of concentrated piracy.
And that massive asteroid belt was supposed to have these huge gates, and it was supposed to be this blocking factor from you getting from the inner system to the outer system. You had to go through the gates to get through the asteroid belt, and that never happened and hasn't happened yet. And they showed a preview of the gates and then just never spoke about it again. I mean, add that to the list of, things like we're feeling with server meshing right now, where they just stop talking about things. They just completely stop.
Including an off-the-radar pirate base for the unlawful players. But what I've described here is the basic star system that Stanton was when each planet was completed. The complex nature of Stanton that I mentioned allows the company to build it out with many assets, biomes, and practices that will assist the creation of future systems, and that's only become more clear since the planets were completed and the planetary team has started.
Yes, but all of this is done with no gameplay in mind. So when I look at all the derelict ships or the derelict settlements or any outposts that they've done, all they have done is place uninteractable assets with none of the game design complete, so with no ability to vision what it would look like, right? That's sort of the problem here. And again, I'll point back to the ships. There's so many design issues with ships now that the actual design of gameplay elements are coming in. The mold didn't make sense. They had to fake it to make it make sense. The whole sea doesn't make sense with how the stations are built, and how you gather or collect or whatever, add or remove cargo from our ships. Doesn't make sense. I'm very excited for the Inside Star Citizen this week. We might hear a lot more about that. Just everything is going to have to change to some extent. Some things a little bit and some things a lot, because everything that Tomato has shown so far has just been art. It's just art.
Building on their foundation. Many of the features that have done this are required for other functionality, but have all gone some way to improve the planetary and space station experience of the game.
Rivers,
These
art.
features include, but aren't limited to, larger hangars for bigger ships to spawn in, new space stations around the system for better coverage, the addition of refinery decks bringing the refining gameplay to space stations, the still underutilized cargo decks which will likely be more useful by the end of the year, spawn closets which...
See, that was our example number one of it will not be likely anymore. That was definitely one of my, like, I would have wanted to see it this year. Would be the cargo decks be used and be, you know, reworked and figured out of, all right, we have this location. How are we going to utilize it? Again, we might hear a lot about that on this week's Inside Star Citizen.
Better control populations, hospitals and the associated gameplay with them, atmospheric clouds on planets, along with rivers spread across the planets that can have them, new types of caves to join the rocky caves we are already exploring, derelict ships to explore, loot, and fight pirates at, derelict ruins where you could do the same, drug labs to make some good money from, convention centers for events and activities, a huge amount of asset, height map, and biome improvements, and...
Damn, when you list off all the things they have, doesn't it seem like a lot? Why does the game feel so empty? I think it's because nearly everything he lists out has the same thing. Ninetales, loot boxes, fetch quests, kill quests. You think that's probably why? It's because whatever we do there is quite similar to things that we do elsewhere. Like even the 890 jump mission, kind of cool, right? Like more than kind of cool. It's pretty wild how cool that is. But it's just a kill quest. You know, it's not a... There's a little bit of an extra layer on it, which takes it to the next level. I look forward to a time where they start layering on more interesting things, but it's crazy when he actually lists off how many things we have and how uniquely different they sound. Right? But it's all environment, not story. That's an interesting look at it as well. You know, if we want to take the, you know, what Bethesda did versus what Star Citizen is doing now standpoint, well, there's a lot of story going on, whether it is an individual story, just a story of an outpost that you're visiting on a planet. There's a story to it, right? Like, I don't know what quest I'm doing right now, but it's this, you know, supposed to be like some educational facility or something like that. And there's this whole quest line. I think that's probably a big thing that's missing. I think what we have on the screen was probably one of the first examples of a possible, like, quest line and storyline. This whole Xenothreat thing. They made the mission. It's kind of okay. You know, it integrates a lot of people together and you know, integrates different gameplay together. But then that's it. It just ends. And there's no, you know, there's not this grand process to get there, right? And I think that that's kind of a little bit of a problem with Star Citizen. I think you really point that out with that. Is that there's really no story injected into the game, or if it is, it's all being read on data pads or in your Mobi-Glass and things like that. And Star Citizen prides itself on immersion, but is that not one of the most immersion-breaking things that we currently have? Is that I don't feel connected to anything. No NPCs talk to me. They're not talking to each other. They're not sharing their story, right? And that's probably why these amazing locations, from an art perspective, feel so dead, right? They're dead. And you know, they have all the time in the world right now to resolve this issue, but yeah, I think that's what it is for me. I wasn't sure, you know?
And much more lore to provide context for the star system itself. It has been very clear that since the planets were finally added to the game in whole, the focus has really shifted towards filling out the base system, bringing Stanton more in line with what it's meant to be long-term and creating locations for future content and context. But this process isn't complete, and even while the new system
Maybe I'll feel immersed when I could drink my damn coffee and the planets actually move. I mean, they rotate.
and the following 2 systems after that are being produced,
That is
Stanton
immersive, though.
continues to
I'm not
see
taking
new
you
additions
seriously,
every
but-
quarter. So let's take a look at what we can expect from Stanton as it continues to become the system it is meant to be.
Okay. Where are we getting to the you're not playing? Because it's not done yet.
A Stanton system that we know is not the one we will be playing in long term.
Okay.
Even looking at the state of the economy and population on the Arc star map, you can see a huge discrepancy from what we are playing. If you were to run a simulation of the Stanton system to show commerce, trade lanes, pirates, and more, it would be a massive spiderweb of units going about their day. In Star Citizen Alpha 317, there's
Dude, I think we should make an emote called Tony Zing, and it just be, you know what like truing looks like, where it's like very close but like also tracking the nose, so it's like really kind of stupid looking when one of Tony Z's talks, just tracking his head, right? Something like that. I think
nothing
that would be
more
funny.
than a few players in any given spot, and that annoying security that keeps scanning you.
Is Tony Z even real? I don't know, bro.
In the future, a simulation just like this will keep track of the supply and demand of all nodes in the system. This includes outposts, cities, space stations, underground facilities, and more. Each of these locations
I will not harp on this very much because I've talked to Tomato about it before, but when they say how things are going to work, and then we as creators say that that's how it's going to be, like you can't even use the word eventually because it's just their intention for it to work this way. And then when they actually try to implement it, it usually doesn't work out and they have to change it, right? So taking this and promoting Star Citizen in this way is, I think, always problematic, which is why I've always taken the more conservative or pessimistic approach, because at least you're not steering anybody in the wrong direction, right? You're at the very least, you're not steering anybody in a direction that is going, that they're going to be like, dude, that's not what happened, you know? There's always the opportunity that CIG does better.
will need materials and produced waste and goods. This is the backbone of the economy and Star Citizen overall.
City Skylines City Skylines 2 is doing a pretty good job of this from what we can tell. It's really neat looking. Probably my most anticipated game of the year right now.
Where you will be able to have a small impact on the world. Stanton, being one of the most commercialized systems in human space, will absolutely be teeming with activity. Factions will have control over certain areas and resources, offering exclusive deals and discounts to friends and denying enemies.
Now, I absolutely expect an update at CitizenCon this year on Quantum, or Quanta, or whatever the fuck it's called. Who cares? They hired an entire company to help them work on it, and we have heard nothing. I don't know when they were hired. What's it called? The company again? I can't even remember. But there is a company that they had mentioned briefly on an ISC in monthly reports about them helping with this system. So what has come from that, right? This is one of those things where, no, we're not investors. You know what I mean? But people spend your money on the game. Baskin Robbins, well, I guess Stanton's going to taste really good and be filled with sugar and dye. Right? Fire Festival logistics. That's, yeah, okay. Nice. Making sense. So, yeah, I know that there's a company that's working on this. So my expectations is to hear a little bit of an update on how it's going, how close it is, how far it is. If it's far, then we're not going to get an update. But yeah, there's an entire team that is just there to do this, and it's been what, 2 years?
Missions will be popping up regularly as they are needed. Deliveries, resource locating, harvesting, security, and more options will be.
This image breeds the most imagine for me. Leveling up in so many different systems. This image fills my brain with so much imagination. All the routes we can go down and all the things, it drives me nuts because they showed it, and then even with salvage missions, we haven't really hit any sort of like proper reputation tiers yet.
Available from these various factions and populated out to all players, and to use specifically in your priority tab. And based on the state of any part
now, they did make it very clear that it was just icons. But
of the system at any time, you might be running into sandbox-based emergent events in which cargo haulers might need help or a group of villagers might need an emergency delivery. And finally, mission givers should be functioning again after server load issues have been better mitigated. These characters will have narrative, more weighty missions for you to take on that require a storyline to be followed, and a certain level of performance to be met. You'll be able to develop working relationships with these people and use their connections to your advantage as well. Some are already in the game, but they struggle to...
See what I mean? It's like all these things are going to happen. No, we just really hope they do.
Work due to server tick rates and therefore a lack of investment of time. Now, all of this will mean a lot more options for players to pursue if they please. You'll be able to make a living in one planet's local area, boosting your reputation, keeping your travel time short, and learning the local area laws and hotspots better than anybody else. We're still a ways away from that, but the economy is one of the biggest and most impactful ways that the Stanton system will change over time.
Absolutely. And if it actually happens, it will be such a game changer, right? Like if missions are spawning based off of real world reasons. And one of the other things that they said that they were going to do and never did was let's say ArcCorp, for example. They decide, because here's where story can really be implemented, is they're able to dial these bars and change some things as the company, as GMs, as designers, to decide that, hey, ArcCorp went bankrupt. They were buying too much ore from people, or materials, and then nobody was buying their stuff. And there was going to be more graffiti and things were going to change about these locations. And then they made the locations entire planets, So that was something that, was going to tell a story as well that no longer is going to be very easy to tell because these landing zones were supposed to just be landing zones and not entire planets. So, yeah.
And of course, as money changes, so does crime. And the law is another big place Stanton will see some shifts from the current day.
They've been really good at attempting to...
As of right now, it is
continue
near
working on the
impossible
law
to get
system.
help out in space in time if you're being attacked. And even if you aren't yet being attacked, getting an escort is also not very intuitive. Several features such as easy to create player-to-player missions, ship physical armor and disabling, better scanning abilities, and more reliable security and bounty hunters are going to make it much easier to keep yourself safe in the game. But Stanton will always be a weird system when it comes to the law. It is a populous, bustling powerhouse of a system, but it's not your well-controlled Terra or Ellis.
It's such a weird system. Everything feels so weird now that like everybody knows where Grimhex is, yet the security in the system does nothing about it, right? It's such a weird Everything is so odd how it works.
After all, imagine a major US city like Los Angeles, a place where you can feel
Party hard
safe
combination.
working, touring, and commuting in peace for the most
A
part,
stick and a mouse.
but also a place where you need to watch where you're going. Stanton suffers from a lack of enforcement at the moment to make this a reality, but security networks are being worked on, which will dictate clearance levels based on reputation and allow players to better track the crimes and infractions of their peers. More NPCs and players alike will be out on security patrols based on probability volumes that inform the game and players similarly that some areas contain higher pirate activity.
I think probability volumes exist now, but just they're very hard to notice. Because again, the story's not really being told yet, I think.
Law and bounty hunting offices are being developed per the monthly report, offering a place for that game loop to flourish and encourage players to take on more criminal hunting behaviors.
And we've seen a lot more of that recently.
Death, reputation loss, imprisonment, and item loss will continue to rise, pushing more casual players to take their pirate antics to safer waters for them like Pyro. While that might push the average skill level of pirates in a controlled system like Stanton higher, there's a good chance it will push the actual number of pirates down. And of course, armistice zones will be removed.
I mean, I really hope that we get some more long-term reputation and people who are participating in piracy action in the Stanton system have a really hard time staying in the Stanton system, right? And making it a little bit more difficult to exist here. So you live in the pyro system, you fly in, do your hits, get out, and go back home, you know?
At some point in the future, leaving no
but then how does
safe place
Grimhex
for a
work?
criminal if dedicated bounty hunters are after them. Then there's also customs in cities and space stations which will be utilized in the future. While players will be able to bring drugs and weapons with them wherever they want, they will have to find alternative methods to get them past customs and into city proper for whatever mission.
Like, why not just build a stable base of a game and add all this at once you have some stability in place? The thing is that's what they've always been working towards. Like, it doesn't feel that way, but that is what they've always been working towards, all at the same time while working against that goal, right? The way the funding model works actively fights against them creating the stable base, right? Because they have to continuously release content every quarter to keep people interested, to keep people buying spaceships. They have to continuously step up that level of content to keep people interested, to keep people buying spaceships, right? And that's sort of a problem with that. And the entire time, they've been trying to make dynamic server meshing or whatever, right? And I think the funding model and everything has made it more difficult to make server meshing throughout the entire process. Think about PES. What if there were very few items that PES had to deliver and they could scale that up over time? They don't get that luxury. They had to make a system that works with our thousands and hundreds and millions of inventory items in a database. That makes it really hard.
Mission or task they may be on. This would be the proper introduction of the smuggling profession. This process of gating players can already be seen with Crusader Security Post Korea in 3.18 and beyond, only allowing players...
Bro, there's no way smuggling exists with the current systems at all. Even with ships, there are a couple of ships that have hidden areas, none of which can fit a 1 SCU box, from what I understand, right? So, like, again, another example of the systems being thought out and the ships being designed before those systems were thought out, right? I think the MSR has the side, but the underbelly is the actual hidden area, right? So where are you hiding anything of value down there? None of it is a decent size. Maybe 1 SCU stuff fits down there. But I don't think it fits through the door. So it's this really weird thing that is just always the cart before the horse, and it just makes no sense. So the only way to do it then would be shielded containers. And then every ship becomes a smuggling ship, even though certain ships were sold as smuggling ships. Right? I don't think you do either, but the problem with it is you sold the MSR and you sold the Constellation Taurus as possible smuggling ships. So people purchased them expecting to be able to smuggle in them, and then now they're going to have to come up with a new system because the ship doesn't fit the gameplay, right? And yeah, I think we'll just have shielded containers and you pay extra money for them or whatever.
To approach if they are approved by Crusader Security.
Simplify it.
Overall, Stanton will be an early player system, but it might not be the perfect one as your first. The safer places will become safer, but the shady places will also become shadier. It'll be harder to get to those, and you'll want to have the right rep to approach, but the overarching player freedom this game aims to provide when it comes to where and what you can do at any given time means in Stanton, you'll likely be able to play a relatively safe or dangerous game when it comes to the law. But many of those law and economic changes won't matter without the features to back them up. There is a lot that's actually already in the system that will benefit a lot from upcoming features. For starters, commercial flights in Star Citizen are absolutely a thing. You can see signs of them at each starport, and they aren't just for show.
Because they're signs, they are a thing. Yes, of course. Because they drew a picture of something, that means they're a thing.
Personnel transport is a career path we've already seen being worked on in Engine, and could be a feature coming this year as I previously covered.
Nope.
It will include interplanetary
hindsight is so nice. It's so nice to know.
Flights using different ships, and will require good service, the proper ship, and mixed drinks. Yeah, seriously. But these flights will also allow players to travel without the responsibility of a ship, and create more bustling spaceports. Space stations, outposts, and cities will also see extended access points. We can see this very clearly in Orison in some of the back areas where you can find power consoles and different components available for gameplay to be attached. We've also seen this in New Babbage where additional rooms.
We've seen this for 10 years where they've built locations where inevitably gameplay will be attached, but it never gets attached, and they keep just drawing more pictures and making more locations that are just art and not functional.
Rooms and areas are
where are the people making the gameplay?
Just waiting to be filled with objectives such as cycling power or fixing equipment. These kinds of places will build out the cities with simple missions that could help introduce players to the area, keep new players entertained, or offer easy training for certain activities. We'll also see external access to space stations for more interesting zero-G missions. We've seen several.
That was a plan a long time ago.
Specialized outposts now. Some look like factories and refineries, and some appear to be more like just towns. It's becoming more clear that Stanton will not be the barren system we've.
Ah, man, did they bait us with this or what? This was last year. He made this video in January, so they showed this at the end of last year, most likely. The refinery thing at the outpost. Like making it feel like, oh my God, this year they're going to deliver like refinery gameplay at an outpost on a planet. It's September 12th.
Known, but we'll have plenty of these special locations for us to do work, pick up and drop off deliveries, and explore. And it seems they fit perfectly as an alternative to space stations. And
oh, damn. Why don't we have that space station? Oh, Outlaw Space Station. Okay.
Also, the improved ground facilities.
Pyro, maybe.
I think the improved ground facilities we've seen recently are another major location archetype, alongside cities, towns, caves, and space stations that can act as standalone packages of gameplay for players to encounter in missions, doing random tasks, and general exploration.
Yes. Go down and kill 100 NPCs instead of just 10.
They may actually be introduced in 2023, but there's no knowing yet. But it's clear that all of these locations are being prepared for a lot more activity and a lot more locations in the Stanton system. We've seen an increase in these kinds of
I think this shows perfectly that the expectations are set by the company and they never, not they never deliver on those, but the expectations get set by the company, and then they're honestly like working on other random things that are happening behind the scenes. And yeah. Should I buy this game? No.
locations, with several ruins added in one patch last year, and now 35 more ruins added in 3.18, along with plenty of new river locations, sand caves, and race-ready locations. This trend will likely continue in 2023, with more points of interest added around Stanton in anticipation of more of this gameplay. The gameplay I'm talking about will be complemented by, I think, several different features, but arguably one of the biggest are building interiors.
Not
Star
yet.
Citizen's method
Try it
of
for
offering
free.
more interior gameplay spaces procedurally throughout cities.
There's free flags.
These building interiors, while likely a bit samey at times, should greatly expand the explorable area in cities and the places in which we can run FPS, rescue, resource management, and other types of missions. For some examples, check out Siege of Orison. Then there are the creatures. Not really something you hear about often, as they are heavily dependent on competent non-human AI, which you can imagine hasn't really been a priority. But we are already well aware of a few creatures that will make Stanton their home. There is the Xiphopod, which we've seen advertised on Hurston, the Stormwall, native to Crusader, the Boreal Stalker, known to be on Microtech, and the little pillbug,
which I think a lot of us thought we would get this year. Didn't happen.
bugs added to sand caves in 3.18, though I don't know if those will ever actually be alive. There are undoubtedly more to come, but these are what we know are in Stanton and could add new harvestables, collectibles, and missions where they are added into the game, though there's no knowing when that is. And finally, there are the ongoing updates to our current locations. Cargo decks will likely be updated to accommodate the next step of the cargo refactor. Lorville is likely seeing a new version added this year. The system's jump points will be added,
We now get less frames there.
drastically changing trade lanes. Asteroid facilities are due. Microtech's forest is getting improved. Different types of caves will be added. The Aaron's Halo Belt contains massive gateway passages controlled by the corporations to control inter-system traffic. And ArcCorp will be updated, with clouds, weather, and likely some other biomes besides just city,
Just clouds.
as that has been retconned.
There's another planet that sort of went through some changes. The original, pitch for it was that sort of Coruscant type planet where it's like just one massive megacity type thing. But we sort of walked that back a bit. It was initially described as like every square inch of it had been developed and stuff like that. But now we're sort of sticking it to land masses because there's sort of sciencey stuff that like weather and stuff like that would be affected by everything being basically a city.
So an ecumenopolis like Coruscant can't exist? That sucks.
There are tons of changes still due for the Stanton system, and as each system is added to the game with new assets and game systems, it will continue to see these updates.
Is it sciencey things or something else
Throughout the years. I know that some people believe they shouldn't be working on the older assets and only building new locations, but there is something to be said about a balance between filling out an entire game experience in one system while also slowly expanding into others. And I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that discussion down in the comments below. The Stanton system will always act as a great representation of the overall game. It's where everything started, just a small corner of the system that has grown in leaps through both playable area and usable features. And while
I think it's like ambiguous law system has been the thing that has not represented the game very well, though. I think that the way they've dealt with the Stanton system has probably made it so difficult for people to understand. And yeah.
Still haven't been able to experience what was
done.
actually meant to be played. We've been right there every step of the way as it expanded. And in 10 years, when Stanton is far from new and novel, we'll still likely be spending plenty of time there, because neither the Stanton system nor Star Citizen are going to stop changing anytime soon.
Of course not.
I hope you enjoyed this video. I've not known when to make it because, as is the whole point, the system is always changing.
Yeah.
It's hard to talk about what is right or wrong in Star Citizen because so many of the features that are defining factors of the game simply don't exist yet. When it comes to conversations around new players,
that's wrong, right? It's just wrong to do it that way. That's the thing. We're at year 11 And so many of the defining features don't exist yet. That's the wrong part. That's the problem, dude. Holy shit.
Pirates, griefing, safety, or even currency earning rates. The same can be said about Stanton. I wanted to make this to try and bring awareness to just how many ways this star system and the game overall will still keep changing, while features are added and made to support others, and how playstyles will need to change to accommodate. I of course made this video for my supporters. I know you all love these videos, and I like to make them for you as a thank you for making this all possible. If you're seeing this 6 months later, consider becoming a supporter to get exclusive videos like this every month. They're generally more in-depth than my others. You can find links to support down below. And consider subscribing to the channel for more Star Citizen content if you're interested. I hope you learned something new in this one, and I'll catch you in the next.
All right, that was good. I think it covers really well all the things that are being done and things that are planned in the near future. And it does show that so much gets done, but the end there is the defining feature of the system and the defining feature of the title. We're not playing Star Citizen because none of the playable or systems that make the game exist. It's not. And, you know, again, paying attention to all the things that they communicate out as solid. You know, the last 10 years have proven that just isn't the case. And it is what it is. It is just not the case, right? Like they work on something, realize that there's some limitations or they don't think it plays well or whatever, and then they tweak it and they change it. And that's actual game development. That's like good things. It's the way they communicate their plans and us as the community saying, well, that's how it's going to be is very, I think, problematic because the game is so big and so vast and wide that it does make it a little bit weird to try to understand, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, great video. Let me link it to you guys. This is Space Tomato. Friend of the show. Big fan. I'm going to be I was just on one of his podcasts that he just posted, and I will be on another one at the end of the month. So very excited for that. But that was Space Tomato.